I am Lillian, 27, and literally last weekend my role as the family's quiet anchor? Yeah, it completely unraveled. The trust I'd poured my heart into upholding for my grandparents who raised me like their own? It blew up into a full-on family showdown at their lawyer's office for the will reading. My parents and siblings, always chasing status, demanded I hand over the $26 million inheritance my grandparents left me. When I stood my ground, refusing to betray the two people who truly saw me, the room went dead silent. "You're choosing money over family," my mother screamed, with everyone, my father, siblings, even my aunt, staring like I'd burned the house down. But here's the truth. Their anger didn't break me, it woke me up. I'm not just fighting back. I'm about to honor my grandparents' legacy and redefine what family means. A quick note. This story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel, Guest Stories. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now, back to the story. The air in the lawyer's office felt thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. I sat at the edge of a stiff leather chair, my hands folded tightly in my lap, fingers twisting the hem of my cardigan. My grandparents' lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, adjusted his glasses, his voice steady as he read their will. To Lillian Marie Carter, we bequeath our entire estate, valued at approximately $26 million, including all properties, investments, and personal assets. The words hit like a thunderclap. My jaw dropped, my heart pounding so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I glanced at my family, expecting shock, maybe even a flicker of pride. Instead, my mother's face twisted, her lips pursing like she'd bitten a lemon. My father's eyes narrowed, and my older sister Claire let out a sharp scoff, crossing her arms. My brother Ethan leaned forward, his Rolex glinting as he gripped the table. "You must have misread that," my mother said, her voice slicing through the silence. They wouldn't leave everything to her. She didn't even look at me as if I were invisible. Mr. Hargrove cleared his throat, pushing his glasses up. "The will is clear, Mrs. Carter. Lillian is the sole beneficiary." I felt my face flush, not from joy but from the sudden weight of their glares. I'd spent my life trying to keep the peace, nodding along at family dinners while they boasted about Claire's law firm promotions or Ethan's real estate deals. Me? I'm just a kindergarten teacher, shaping little lives with finger paints and story time. To them, that was nothing. "Lillian, you can't possibly manage this," my father said, his tone calm but edged with condescension. "You'll sign it over to the family trust, we'll handle it." It wasn't a question. My stomach churned. I thought of my grandparents, Nana's warm hugs, Papa's stories about their bakery empire, how they'd cheer at my school plays when my parents had meetings. They believed in me. I couldn't let them down. "I'm not signing anything," I said, my voice quieter than I wanted but firm. Claire laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "You? With $26 million? You'll blow it on crayons and charity." Ethan leaned closer, his cologne overwhelming. "Don't be selfish, Lil. This is family money." Selfish? The word stung, but it also sparked something. I sat up straighter, my hands unclenching. "It's what Nana and Papa wanted," I said, meeting their eyes one by one. My mother slammed her hand on the table, her diamond bracelet jangling. "You're choosing money over us." The accusation hung there, heavy. I wanted to scream that they'd never chosen me, never shown up, never cared unless it served them. Instead I stood, my legs shaky but my resolve solid. "I'm choosing them," I said, meaning my grandparents. The room froze. Mr. Hargrove shuffled papers, avoiding the tension. My family's stares burned, but I walked out, my heart racing with a mix of fear and clarity. They thought they could bully me into submission, but they just pushed me to fight for what was mine. As I stepped out of the lawyer's office into the crisp autumn air, my keys jingling in my trembling hand, I fumbled to unlock my old Honda Civic. The engine sputtered to life, and I pulled away, my mind reeling from the confrontation. Tears blurred the road ahead, but I wiped them furiously, refusing to let them win even in private. How had it come to this? My family's faces, twisted in greed and disbelief, flashed in my mind, pulling me back to all the times they'd made me feel like an afterthought. It wasn't new. This invisibility had been building for years, woven into every family gathering, every milestone they ignored. Sitting there at a red light, horns blaring behind me, I let the memories flood in, each one sharper than the last, reminding me why standing up to them felt like breaking free from chains I'd worn too long. It started early, back when I was just a kid trying to fit into their perfect picture. I remembered my 8th birthday vividly, the one where I begged for a simple party with my friends from school. Instead, my parents turned it into a showcase for Claire's latest piano recital award. She'd won some regional competition, and suddenly the living room was filled with her trophies on the mantel, guests oohing and ahhing as she played a flawless sonata. I sat in the corner, my birthday cake forgotten on the side table, the candles melting into wax puddles. "Claire's going places," my mother had said, ruffling her hair while barely glancing at me. "Lillian, why don't you try something like that?" I clenched my little fists under the table, forcing a smile, but inside it hurt, like I was just the backdrop to their stars. Ethan, even younger then, got pulled into it too, praised for his soccer goals while my drawings from art class got taped to the fridge and forgotten. Fast forward to high school, and the pattern dug deep. I poured my soul into the school play, landing the lead in Annie Get Your Gun. Rehearsals meant late nights, memorizing lines until my voice cracked, all while juggling homework and helping at home. The night of the performance, I scanned the audience from backstage, heart pounding, hoping to see them. But only Nana and Papa showed up, front row, Papa with his camera flashing, Nana clapping louder than anyone. My parents? They had a client dinner for Dad's business, and Claire was at a debate tournament. Ethan texted me later, "Sorry, sis, had practice." After the curtain call, I hugged my grandparents backstage, their pride wrapping around me like a warm blanket. "You were brilliant, Lily," Papa said, his eyes misty. But when I got home, the house was dark. No congratulations, no questions about how it went. The next morning at breakfast, Mom gushed over Claire's debate win, passing her extra bacon. "That's my girl, future lawyer material." I poked at my eggs, throat tight, whispering, "The play was good too." Dad looked up from his newspaper. "Oh, right, good job, kid." And that was it. Dismissed, like my effort was a hobby, not something real. College amplified it all. I chose education, dreaming of teaching kindergarten, inspired by how my grandparents had nurtured me. They helped with tuition quietly, never making a fuss, while my parents funneled money into Claire's Ivy League law school and Ethan's business degree. My graduation day was a blur of cap and gown, but again, only Nana and Papa were there, beaming as I walked the stage. "We're so proud," Nana whispered, slipping a necklace into my hand, a family heirloom. "My family?" They skipped it for Ethan's fraternity formal. "It's a big networking event," Mom explained over the phone, her voice distracted. "You'll understand." I didn't. That night, alone in my dorm, I cried into my pillow, fists balled in the sheets, wondering why my achievements never measured up. Their love felt like a scorecard, tallied by dollars and status. Claire's first job at a fancy firm, champagne toasts and a family trip to celebrate. Ethan's startup investment, Dad slapped his back, calling him the next big thing. Me landing my teaching job, a pat on the head and, "That's cute, Lillian, stable, I guess." Even holidays reinforced the divide. Last Christmas I spent weeks crafting personalized gifts, hand-painted mugs for everyone, filled with memories from our childhood. I wrapped them carefully, tying bows with shaking hands, hoping it'd bridge the gap. At the family dinner, Claire unveiled her new designer handbag, a bonus from work, and the table erupted in admiration. Ethan showed off his latest gadget, a smartwatch that cost more than my monthly rent. My gifts? Opened last, with polite nods. "Thanks, Lil," Claire said, setting the mug aside without a second look. Mom sipped from hers once, then switched to her crystal glass. "Practical," Dad muttered. I bit my lip, nails digging into my palms under the table, fighting the urge to point out how I'd skipped lunches to afford the paints. Instead I smiled, but inside, resentment simmered. Why was my heart's work always less than? These moments piled up, each one a micro cut, bleeding me dry of hope for real connection. My family chased the shine, cars, titles, vacations, while I found joy in the quiet impact of teaching. A child's first "I did it" hug meant more to me than any bonus. But to them I was the outlier, the one who didn't fit their materialistic mold. Nana and Papa saw that. They celebrated my small victories with homemade pies and long talks on their porch swing. "You're building futures, Lily," Papa would say, his hand on mine. "That's real wealth." As I drove home now, the flashbacks fading like taillights in the rear view, I realized their entitlement today wasn't a surprise, it was the culmination. They'd always valued things over people, and now with $26 million on the line, their masks had slipped completely. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white, determination hardening in my chest. No more invisibility. It was time to step into the light they'd denied me. Pulling into the driveway of my small apartment, the one I'd rented since starting my teaching job, I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, forehead resting against the steering wheel. The cool leather grounded me as my breathing slowed, the day's chaos still echoing in my ears. But amid the hurt, thoughts of Nana and Papa surfaced like a lifeline, pulling me toward the warmth they'd always provided. I grabbed my purse, fingers brushing the keychain they'd given me, a tiny silver apple engraved with "World's Best Teacher," and headed inside. The door clicked shut behind me, and I sank onto the couch, kicking off my shoes with a sigh. Staring at the photo on the end table, the three of us at their bakery's 50th anniversary, smiles wide and genuine, I let myself drift back to the bond we'd built over years, the one that had been my real foundation. It wasn't just memories, it was the secret they'd nurtured, the trust they'd placed in me, revealed in quiet moments that now made today's inheritance feel like their final, loving act. It all deepened when I was about 12, after my parents shipped me off to live with Nana and Papa full-time. "It's for the best," Mom had said, packing my bags with brisk efficiency, her nails clicking against the suitcase zipper. "We're traveling more for work and they have space." But I knew it was because I didn't fit their fast-paced life. Claire and Ethan were the stars, off to private schools, while I was the quiet one who preferred books over boardrooms. Arriving at my grandparents' cozy house above their bakery, the smell of fresh bread enveloping me like a hug, Nana pulled me close, her apron dusted with flour. "This is home now, Lily," she whispered, her hands gentle on my shoulders. Papa nodded from the kitchen, his mustache twitching in a smile as he slid a warm cookie my way. I unclenched my fists, the tension from the car ride easing, and for the first time I felt seen. From then on, they raised me with a love that was steady and real, not flashy. Mornings started with Papa teaching me to knead dough, his calloused hands guiding mine as flour puffed into the air. "Life's like this bread," he'd say, pressing firmly but not too hard. "You gotta work it with care, or it falls flat." I'd nod, my small fingers mimicking his, feeling the rhythm build strength in me. After school, Nana would sit with me at the kitchen table, helping with homework while sipping tea, her eyes lighting up at my stories about class projects. When I confessed my dream of teaching, she didn't laugh like my parents had. "That's not ambitious enough," Mom once snapped. Instead, Nana squeezed my hand, her ring cool against my skin. "Teachers shape the world, dear. That's power." Their support was in the details. Papa slipping extra allowance for art supplies, Nana sewing my costumes for school events, both showing up to every parent-teacher conference my real parents skipped. As I grew older, our bond evolved into deeper conversations, especially after tough days. In my late teens, when Claire's college acceptance came with a family celebration I wasn't invited to. "It's just for her," Ethan texted. I'd storm into the bakery, slamming the door harder than intended. Papa would look up from icing cakes, wipe his hands on a towel and pull out a stool. "Sit, Lily. Talk." I'd pour it out, tears dripping onto the counter, fists clenched as I described feeling like the family outsider. He'd listen, nodding slowly, then share stories of his own youth, starting the bakery from nothing, facing doubters. "Family isn't always blood," he'd say, his voice gravelly but kind, patting my back. "It's who stands by you." Nana would join, bringing cocoa, her arm around me as we talked late into the night. Those moments fortified me, turning hurt into resolve. But there was a layer I didn't fully grasp until later. Their quiet planning for my future. It started subtly, around my 21st birthday. We were in their living room, fire crackling, as they handed me a small envelope. Inside was a savings bond, modest but meaningful. "For your dreams," Papa said, his eyes twinkling. I hugged them, but noticed their exchanged glances, a silent conversation. Over the years, hints dropped. Nana mentioning updating their will, Papa talking about legacy more often, always tying it to values like kindness over greed. "We've built something here," he'd say, gesturing to the bakery photos on the walls, "but it's for those who understand its heart." I thought it was philosophical, not literal. Then 2 years ago, after Papa's health scare, a mild heart attack that had us all terrified, things shifted. I rushed to the hospital, heart pounding, finding Nana by his bed, her hand in his. He looked frail, tubes snaking around, but his grip was strong when he pulled me close. "Lily, we've always seen you," he whispered, voice weak. "You're the one who gets it, the giving, not the taking." That night, after he stabilized, Nana walked me to the cafeteria, her steps slow. We sat with coffee, steam rising, and she confided more. "Your parents, they've lost sight," she said, stirring sugar absently, spoon clinking. "We raised them better, but money changed things." I nodded, throat tight, as she continued. "Papa and I, we've decided the estate, it's yours." My cup froze midway to my lips, eyes widening. "What?" She smiled faintly, patting my hand. "Not all at once, but yes, you've earned it, not by blood but by heart. Promise you'll use it wisely, help others like you do with your kids." I stared, processing, my free hand trembling. It wasn't about the money, it was their trust, a secret they'd built to protect me from my family's grasp. "But why me?" I asked, voice cracking. Papa, from his room later, explained, "Because you remind us of why we started, hard work, compassion. Your siblings, they're like your parents now. Entitled." We talked for hours, me pacing the linoleum floor, them outlining their plan quietly, ensuring it was ironclad. I promised, tears streaming, hugging them both, feeling the weight of their love. In the months that followed, we kept it hidden. Their health declining slowly. I'd visit daily, helping with the bakery books, sharing laughs over tea. Papa's final words, weeks before he passed, "Stand firm, Lily. They'll fight, but remember, we chose you." Nana echoed it before she joined him months later. Now, back in my apartment, clutching that photo, the revelation hit full force. Their inheritance wasn't a surprise gift, it was a deliberate shield, built from years of observing my family's flaws. I set the frame down gently, fingers lingering, a fire igniting in my chest. They hadn't just raised me, they'd armed me for this battle. No more doubting, it was time to honor that bond. With that resolve settling in, like a deep breath after a storm, I pushed myself off the couch, my bare feet padding across the worn carpet to the kitchen. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, reminding me that time wasn't pausing for my revelations. The world kept turning, and so did the demands of my new reality. Tomorrow was the annual family dinner at my parents' house, the one they insisted on every fall to keep traditions alive, though it always felt more like a stage for their boasts. This year, with the inheritance fresh and raw, it loomed like a battlefield. I knew they'd use it to corner me again, piling on the pressure to sign over what wasn't theirs. But there was more at stake now. The bakery empire my grandparents had built, now mine, was on the cusp of a massive expansion deal I'd been secretly negotiating for months. As I filled the kettle for tea, hands steady despite the inner turmoil, I couldn't shake the mix of dread and quiet excitement. The dinner might break me, or it could be where I finally stood unbreakable. The kettle whistled, jolting me, and I poured hot water over a chamomile bag, watching the steam curl up. My phone buzzed on the counter, the screen lighting up with a text from Mr. Hargrove. "Deal papers ready for review. Potential buyers eager, could close next week." I set the mug down harder than intended, liquid sloshing over the rim, burning my thumb. Sucking in a breath, I wiped it away, the sting mirroring the sharp edge of everything. The deal was for expanding the bakery chain nationally, partnering with a major distributor, something Papa and I had dreamed up during late-night talks in the kitchen, flour dusting our arms. He'd taught me the books, the suppliers, the recipes that made it thrive, all while my family dismissed it as quaint. For the past year, since his health declined, I'd taken over quietly, crunching numbers after teaching hours, sealing small contracts that built momentum. No one knew. Not my parents, not Claire or Ethan. It was my secret project, born from that aha moment last winter when Papa handed me the ledgers. "You're the future, Lily," he'd said, his hand trembling but eyes fierce. I'd stared at the figures, realizing the potential. $26 million wasn't just savings, it was the valuation of a business ready to soar. I moved to the bedroom, pulling open my closet with a creak, fingers trailing over hangers. What do you wear to a dinner that's really an ambush? I grabbed a simple blue dress, Nana's favorite color, slipping it on, the fabric cool against my skin. Standing before the mirror, I smoothed it down, noticing how my reflection looked different, shoulders straighter, chin higher. But inside, nerves twisted like dough in a mixer. The family would grill me, their voices already echoing in my head. Mom's pointed questions. How can you handle this alone? Dad's calculated offers. Let us invest it properly. Claire's snide remarks, Ethan nodding along, his envy barely masked. I buttoned the dress slowly, each snap a deliberate act, reminding myself of the struggle to get here. That aha hit during a blizzard last January. I was snowed in at the bakery, poring over old records, sales dips from years ago. But Papa's innovations, new flavors, community events, had turned it around. I saw the pattern, growth through heart, not greed. That night, laptop glowing, I sketched expansion plans, emailing potential partners anonymously. Rejections came first, crumpling my confidence. I'd paced the empty shop, fists clenched, doubting myself. But persistence paid. One yes led to another, building to this deal that could triple the value. Zipping up, I sat on the bed's edge, lacing my shoes with careful loops. The internal battle raged. Part of me wanted to skip the dinner, hide from their judgment, but skipping meant letting them win, assuming I'd cave. No, I'd go, armed with the knowledge of my success, the hidden one they'd never valued. I stood, grabbing my purse, slipping in the deal proposal printout, its edges crisp. Glancing at the clock, 2 hours until I had to leave. I wandered to the living room window, parting the curtains, staring at the street below where leaves skittered in the wind. Memories of past dinners flooded. Last year's, where I arrived with homemade pies, only for them to be pushed aside for catered gourmet. Too rustic, Claire had said, fork hovering over her salmon. I'd smiled through gritted teeth, nails digging into my napkin. This time, with the inheritance public, it'd be worse. Their entitlement unleashed. But the deal changed everything. Closing it meant honoring Papa's vision, turning his legacy into something unstoppable. I paced the room now, heels clicking softly, rehearsing responses in my mind. No, I won't sign. Simple. Firm. My hands gestured as if they were there, palms up in mock explanation. It's not about the money, it's about trust. But doubt crept in. What if they pushed harder, threatened more? I stopped, leaning against the wall, forehead pressed to the cool paint. The intense struggle of building this secretly replayed. Sleepless nights balancing teaching and negotiations, faking extra grading to hide calls. One partner balked at my inexperience. I'd argued back via email, heart-hammering, citing figures until they relented. Success came gradually, first a local chain interested, then national scouts. Last month, the big offer, $10 million investment for expansion, pushing the estate to new heights. I'd celebrated alone with Nana's recipe tea, tears mixing in, whispering thanks to them both. Shaking off the emotion, I checked my makeup in the hall mirror, dabbing at lipstick with a tissue. The preparation felt like armor building, each step fortifying me. Phone in hand, I scrolled through emails confirming the deal's details. Signing could happen post-dinner if I pushed. It was life-changing. Not just financially, but proving I could lead. My family saw me as the soft teacher. This would shatter that, but reluctance gnawed. I didn't want the confrontation, the pain of their rejection. Sighing, I tucked a stray hair behind my ear, grabbing my coat. The drive would be tense, but I was ready, or as ready as I'd be. Stepping out, locking the door with a click, I felt the weight of my grandparents' trust pressing, not as burden, but as strength. Tonight's dinner wasn't just tradition, it was Judgment Day. And I was walking in with secrets they couldn't touch. The drive to my parents' house felt endless, the streetlights blurring into streaks as I gripped the wheel, my knuckles paling under the strain. My mind raced ahead to the polished facade of their colonial-style home, all manicured lawns and glowing windows that hid the chill inside. As I turned into the driveway, gravel crunching under my tires, I spotted the familiar cars. Claire's sleek BMW, Ethan's flashy SUV, both screaming success in ways mine never would. I parked at the end, engine ticking as it cooled, and sat there for a beat, inhaling deeply. The scent of my chamomile tea lingered on my coat, a small comfort. Stepping out, the cool evening air nipped at my cheeks, and I smoothed my dress one last time, fingers lingering on the hem as if it could shield me. The front door loomed, wreath perfectly hung, but I knew the welcome would be anything but. With a final exhale, I rang the bell, the chime echoing like a warning. Mom opened the door almost immediately, her smile tight and practiced, lipstick a shade too red. "Lillian, you're here," she said, stepping aside without a hug, her eyes flicking over my outfit like she was appraising a thrift find. "Come in, everyone's waiting." I nodded, slipping past her, the foyer air thick with the smell of roasted garlic and something sweeter, probably her signature apple tart, the one she baked to impress. Dad stood at the living room archway, glass of scotch in hand, his tie loosened just enough to feign casualness. "Lil," he grunted, not moving to greet me, his gaze heavy with unspoken expectations. Claire lounged on the couch, legs crossed, scrolling her phone, while Ethan leaned against the mantel, swirling his drink. The room felt staged, like a tribunal disguised as family time. "Sit, dear," Mom directed, gesturing to the armchair farthest from everyone, her hand waving dismissively. I perched on the edge, crossing my ankles, feeling the upholstery's stiffness mirror my own tension. "So," Claire started without preamble, setting her phone down with a deliberate click, her manicured nails tapping the armrest. "We were just talking about the will, quite the surprise, huh?" Her tone was light, but her eyes sharpened, like a lawyer cross-examining. I forced a neutral expression, my hands folding in my lap, fingers interlocking to steady them. "Yes, it was," I replied evenly, though my pulse quickened. Ethan chuckled, a low, mocking sound, leaning forward. "Surprise? More like a joke. You, with all that money? What are you gonna do, buy more playground equipment?" He sipped his drink, ice clinking, his smirk hidden behind the glass but evident in his crinkled eyes. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, but I didn't flinch, instead tracing the pattern on the rug with my gaze. Buying a moment. Mom bustled in with a tray of appetizers, cheese puffs and olives, placing it on the coffee table with a flourish. "Help yourself, Lillian, you look like you could use a bite. Teaching those kids must be exhausting." Her words dripped with false concern, her smile not reaching her eyes as she avoided direct contact, busying herself rearranging napkins. It was her classic backhanded jab, implying my job was draining drudgery compared to their high-powered lives. I reached for a puff, the flaky crust crumbling under my fingers, and took a small bite, chewing slowly to compose myself. "It's rewarding, actually," I said, swallowing. "Seeing them learn and grow, it's why I do it." Dad snorted softly, settling into his recliner, legs crossing. "Rewarding doesn't pay the bills, kid, not like Claire's cases or Ethan's deals. Speaking of, Claire just closed a merger worth millions." He beamed at her, raising his glass in a mini toast, while she preened, tossing her hair. The praise hung in the air, deliberate, making my own life feel minuscule. Ethan jumped in, his voice casual but probing. "Yeah, sis, congrats on the inheritance, I guess, but seriously, you planning to keep it all? That's a lot for, well, you." He gestured vaguely at me, his watch catching the light, a subtle flex. I set the half-eaten puff down, wiping my fingers on a napkin, crumpling it slightly in my fist. The condescension stung, each word like a pinprick, building pressure. "Papa and Nana wanted me to have it," I said quietly, meeting his eyes. Claire leaned back, crossing her arms, a faint scoff escaping. "Oh, please. They were old, probably confused. You were always hanging around, buttering them up with your helping at the bakery." Her air quotes were exaggerated, fingers curling mockingly as if my time there was a ploy, not genuine care. Mom nodded along, perching on the couch arm, her hand patting Claire's shoulder, absent-mindedly. "Exactly. We raised you better than to hoard like that. Family shares, Lillian." Her tone turned lecturing, like I was a child caught with extra candy. I felt my jaw tighten, teeth clenching briefly before I relaxed it, not wanting to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Inside, thoughts swirled. All those years I'd shared, my time, my heart, while they took, but I kept my voice steady. Sharing isn't the issue, it's respecting their wishes. Dad waved a hand dismissively, scotch sloshing. "Wishes? They didn't see the big picture. You're not equipped, admit it. Your little teaching gig is sweet, but this is real money. We'd invest it properly, grow it for everyone." His everyone meant them, of course, his eyes gleaming with calculation. The barrage continued as dinner aromas wafted in, Mom excusing herself to check the oven, her heels clicking away. Ethan filled the gap, leaning closer. "Come on, Lil, don't be naive. You'd probably donate it all to some school fund. Cute, but wasteful." His laugh was forced, but his fists balled slightly on his knees, betraying frustration. Claire chimed in, her voice syrupy. "And look at you, still in that old car. With that cash, you could upgrade, join the real world." Her compliment twisted into insult. eyes scanning my shoes like they offended her. I shifted in the chair, the springs creaking, my foot tapping once before I stilled it. Each jab chipped at me, but I held firm, internal mantra repeating, "They don't know about the deal. The expansion. It fueled me, a secret shield." As Mom called us to the dining room, the group rising with murmurs, I stood last, smoothing my dress again, palms damp. The initial onslaught had landed, leaving me raw, but not broken. Their contempt was a gauntlet I'd walked before, but tonight, with the inheritance's weight, it felt heavier. Yet as we filed in, silverware clinking ahead, I straightened my spine, ready for whatever escalated next. As we settled around the dining table, the crystal glasses catching the chandelier's light, I took my seat at the far end, the chair scraping against the hardwood floor like a reluctant admission. Mom bustled in with the main course, roast beef, potatoes, and green beans. Her movements efficient but tense, silverware clinking as she served portions. The aroma filled the room, rich and inviting, but my appetite had vanished, replaced by a knot in my stomach that tightened with every passing second. Dad carved the meat with deliberate strokes, his knife slicing through effortlessly, a metaphor I tried not to dwell on. Claire unfolded her napkin with a snap, placing it in her lap, while Ethan reached for the wine bottle, pouring generously into his glass before offering to others. I declined with a small shake of my head, my hand wrapping around my water glass instead, fingers tracing the condensation to ground myself. The conversation had paused during the transition, but I knew it was just reloading, the air thick with unspoken accusations. "Let's bless the food," Mom said, her voice a touch higher than usual, clasping her hands. We bowed our heads, but her prayer felt rote, words tumbling out about gratitude and family unity that rang hollow given the undercurrents. "Amen" echoed softly, and forks began to move, but the small talk didn't last. Dad speared a potato, chewing thoughtfully before locking eyes with me. "Lillian, we've been thinking," he started, his tone measured like he was negotiating a business deal. "This inheritance, it's a family matter. Your grandparents built that bakery with our help, you know. We deserve a say." I paused mid-bite, fork hovering, the beef suddenly tasting like ash. "They left it to me," I replied quietly, setting the utensil down with a soft clink, my napkin twisting in my lap. Claire rolled her eyes, a subtle motion but loaded, her lips pursing. "Deserve? It's not about deserve, it's about what's right. You're acting like it's yours alone." The escalation built slowly, like steam rising. Ethan leaned back, crossing his arms, his chair creaking. "Come on, Lil, sign it over to the family trust, we'll split it fair, maybe give you a cut for your... whatever." His wave was dismissive, hand flapping vaguely as if my life was an inconsequential hobby. I felt my cheeks flush, heat spreading, but I kept my gaze steady. "It's not about splitting. Nana and Papa chose me for a reason." Mom set her knife down sharply, the metal ringing against the plate. "Chose you? Over us? Their own children?" Her voice cracked slightly, but not from hurt, from indignation, her fingers drumming the tablecloth. Dad nodded, wiping his mouth with his napkin, folding it precisely. "Exactly. This is entitlement on your part. We've supported you all these years." Supported? The word ignited something. I'd lived with grandparents, funded my own college partly through scholarships while they bankrolled Claire and Ethan. My fist clenched under the table, nails biting into my palm. Claire jumped in, her voice rising, fork gesturing like a pointer. "You think you're better, playing teacher while we grind in the real world? That money could fund my firm expansion, Ethan's ventures. What are you gonna do? Buy crayons?" Laughter bubbled from Ethan, short and barked, but Mom shushed him half-heartedly, her own lips twitching. I swallowed hard, throat dry, reaching for my water with a trembling hand, the glass cool but slipping slightly in my grip. "It's not about what I do, it's their wish." Dad's face hardened, jaw setting as he leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Wishes can be contested. We're consulting lawyers tomorrow, but if you sign now, we can avoid that mess." The threat hung there, overt now, his eyes boring into mine. I met them, my back straightening against the chair's carved wood, but inside, doubt flickered. Could they really take it? The conversation spiraled, voices overlapping. "Mom, think of your siblings, they've worked so hard." Ethan, "Yeah, I could use it for my startup loan." Claire, "And my partnership bid. You're being selfish." Selfish, the word echoed from the lawyer's office, stabbing deeper here amid the family silver. I pushed my plate away, food barely touched, hands folding tightly in my lap. I'm honoring them. Why can't you see that? Dad slammed his palm on the table, glasses rattling, wine sloshing. Because it's wrong. You're no businesswoman. You'll squander it. His voice boomed, face reddening, veins pulsing in his neck. Silence fell for a beat, heavy, then Mom spoke, her tone final, eyes averted as she traced the table's grain with her finger. If you won't sign, Lillian, you're out. No more family support, no holidays, nothing, we're done. The words landed like a verdict, the room stilling. I stared, breath catching, my heart pounding in my ears. Disowned. Official, cold. Claire nodded slowly, her expression smug, sipping wine without meeting my gaze. Ethan shifted uncomfortably but didn't protest, his fingers tapping his knee. Dad leaned back, arms crossing, the finality in his posture unyielding. Tears pricked my eyes but I blinked them away, refusing to let them fall, my chin lifting slightly. You mean your love was always conditional? The question slipped out, voice steady but edged with pain. Mom flinched, hand to her chest, but recovered quickly. Conditional on loyalty, yes, sign or leave. I stood slowly, chair pushing back with a screech, napkin dropping to the floor. My legs felt numb, but I moved toward the door, each step deliberate, hand brushing the sideboard where family photos mocked me, smiles from better days or illusions of them. Grabbing my coat from the hall rack, fingers fumbling the buttons, I heard footsteps. Ethan, hesitating in the doorway. Lil, don't be dramatic, just sign. His voice was softer, almost pleading, but his eyes darted back to the table, loyalty divided. I shook my head, slipping on my coat, the fabric rustling. No, I'm done pretending. Turning the knob, cool air rushed in as I stepped out, the door clicking shut behind me. The disownment echoed in my mind, a formal cut that severed years of conditional ties. Walking to my car, gravel-crunching, tears finally spilled, hot on my cheeks but mixed with a strange relief. They'd revealed themselves fully, and in that humiliation I found clarity, no more chasing their approval. But the pain lingered, sharp as the night air, as I drove away, the house shrinking in the rear view. The highway blurred through my windshield, streetlights streaking like tears I couldn't fully shed, as I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my nails digging into the leather. The disownment replayed in my head, Mom's final words, Dad's slamming palm, Claire's smug nod, Ethan's hesitant plea, all of it a cacophony that drowned out the radio's static hum. I swerved slightly, correcting with a jerk, my breath coming in shallow bursts. Home felt too small now, too empty to contain this ache, so I drove aimlessly, the engine's rumble the only companion in my isolation. My phone, tossed on the passenger seat, vibrated once, then again, but I ignored it, assuming it was them, piling on more guilt or threats. But on the third buzz, insistent and rhythmic, I glanced over, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. Hesitating, my foot eased off the gas, slowing to the shoulder, gravel crunching under tires as I pulled over. Headlights from passing cars flashed across my dash, illuminating the caller ID, area code from the bakery's town. With a trembling finger I swiped to answer, pressing the phone to my ear, my other hand wiping residual tears. Hello? My voice cracked, raw from the unshed sobs, and I cleared my throat, sitting up straighter against the seatbelt's pull. A warm, familiar voice came through, gravelly with age but steady. Mr. Jenkins, the bakery's longtime manager, who'd worked with Papa for decades. Lillian? It's Harold Jenkins. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I blinked, surprised, my free hand clutching the gear shift like an anchor. Mr. Jenkins? No, it's fine. What's going on? There was a pause, a soft sigh on his end, and I could picture him in the bakery office, adjusting his glasses, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. We heard about the will, kiddo. The whole crew did, friends, employees, even some old suppliers, your grandparents. They prepared us for this. Prepared? My heart skipped and I leaned my head back against the headrest, eyes closing briefly. What do you mean? He chuckled softly, a sound that eased the knot in my chest just a fraction. Papa and Nana, they weren't fools. They knew your family might kick up a fuss. So, months ago they gathered us, me, Mrs. Ellis from accounting, the delivery guys, even their poker buddies from the community center. Told us straight. Lillian's the one, she's got the heart for this place. We all signed affidavits swearing to support you if things went south. Affidavits? The word hung there, and I sat forward, phone pressed harder to my ear, as if to absorb every detail. Support me how? My voice was a whisper now, the highway noise fading into background. Mr. Jenkins cleared his throat, papers rustling on his end. He must have been flipping through them. Legally, for one. We've got statements vouching for their soundness of mind, how they confided in us about your family's, well, priorities. And practically, the bakery's yours, but we're not going anywhere. We've been running smooth under your quiet guidance these past months, and that expansion deal, we know about it. Papa looped us in. The expansion deal, my secret project, the one I'd nurtured in stolen hours now laid bare. I felt exposed but oddly relieved, my fingers relaxing on the shift knob. You knew? He laughed again, warmer this time. Of course, he was proud, Lillian, bragged about your smarts to anyone who'd listen, said you turned those ledgers into gold, and now, with the inheritance clear, we're ready to push forward. The community's behind you, fundraisers, legal help if they contest, even places to stay if needed. Places to stay? The implication hit. They knew about the disownment, or at least suspected. Tears welled again, but these were different. Grateful, cleansing. I wiped them with my sleeve, the fabric rough against my skin. They might make me homeless. They just disowned me tonight. The admission slipped out, vulnerable, and I bit my lip, regretting the weakness. Silence stretched, then Mr. Jenkins' voice softened, paternal. I'm sorry, kid, but you're not alone. My guest room's open. Hell, half the town's offering. And listen, this call's not just me. We've got a group chat going, old folks fumbling with phones, but determined. Mrs. Ellis is emailing you contacts for lawyers who owe your grandparents favors. The employees? They're loyal to the legacy, not bloodlines. As he spoke, my phone buzzed with incoming texts, notifications popping up. Lillian, we're with you. Sarah from Baking Shift. Call if you need anything. Tom, deliveries. Each one pinged like a lifeline, my screen illuminating the car's dim interior. I scrolled briefly, thumb trembling, seeing names I'd known for years. People who'd shared coffee breaks with Papa, laughed at Nana's jokes. Their messages were simple, concrete. Offers of meals, rides, even shifts at the bakery to free me up. This means everything, I managed, voice thick. Mr. Jenkins hummed agreement. Your grandparents built more than a business, they built a family, the real kind. We talked longer, his words weaving a net of security around my shattered evening. He detailed the affidavits, dozens signed, notarized, ready to counter any contest. They can't touch it, he assured, his tone firm like Papa's during tough negotiations. I nodded along, though he couldn't see my free hand now resting on the dashboard, tracing the vents absently. The call revealed layers, not just support, but the true scale of my grandparents' foresight. They'd anticipated the betrayal, armored me with this community. As Mr. Jenkins wrapped up, "Get some rest, call tomorrow," I felt the shift, profound and immediate. The humiliation from dinner, still fresh, now paled against this backing. Hanging up, I sat in the idling car, engine humming softly, staring at the phone's glow. Notifications kept coming, each one a micro-affirmation, building to a chorus. I started the car again, pulling back onto the road, but this time direction clear, toward the bakery, toward home. The drive transformed. What was escape became purpose. Wind rushed through the cracked window, cooling my flushed face, as I replayed his words. This wasn't just a call, it was the turning point, exposing the vast network my grandparents had cultivated. Their friends weren't distant, they were active allies, ready to defend. By the time I reached my apartment, keys jingling as I unlocked the door, the weight had lifted slightly. I collapsed on the couch, phone in hand, replying to messages one by one, fingers flying across the screen. Each "thank you" I typed sealed the change, from isolated outcast to supported heir. The deepest humiliation had cracked open, revealing strength I hadn't known was there. Still buzzing from the flood of supportive messages, I set my phone down on the coffee table with a soft thud, my fingers lingering on the screen as if to hold onto that warmth a little longer. The apartment felt less empty now, the silence broken only by the distant hum of traffic outside. I stood, stretching my arms overhead, muscles tense from the evening's strain, and headed to the kitchen to make another cup of tea, something to steady my nerves. The kettle hissed to life, steam rising in lazy curls, mirroring the swirl of thoughts in my head. The community's backing, a fortress I hadn't known existed, versus my family's cold dismissal. Just as the water boiled, a sharp knock echoed through the door, jolting me. I froze, mug in hand, hot liquid sloshing slightly over the rim onto my fingers. Wincing, I set it down, wiping my hand on a dish towel, heart rate spiking. Who could it be at this hour? The knock came again, insistent, followed by a muffled voice, Mom's. Lillian, open up, we need to talk. I approached the door slowly, peering through the peephole, my breath fogging the glass. There they were. Mom, Dad, Claire and Ethan, clustered on the landing, faces illuminated by the harsh porch light. Mom's arms were crossed tightly, her purse clutched like a shield. Dad shifted his weight, hands in pockets. Claire tapped her foot, checking her watch. Ethan avoided looking directly at the door, rubbing his neck. They looked disheveled, urgency etched in their postures, not the composed unit from dinner. News must have spread fast. Small towns and tight-knit circles like the bakeries meant whispers traveled quicker than texts. I hesitated, hand on the knob, debating ignoring them, but curiosity and a spark of that newfound strength won. Twisting the lock with a click, I opened the door just wide enough, blocking the entry with my body. What are you doing here? My voice was calm, steadier than I felt, arms folding across my chest. Mom pushed forward first, her eyes wide, almost pleading, a far cry from her earlier steel. Lillian, honey, let us in. We heard things, from Hargrove, from others. The community's rallying behind you? She reached out, hand hovering near my arm, but I stepped back slightly, maintaining distance. Dad cleared his throat, his usual authority softened, shoulders slumping a bit. Look, kid, we may have overreacted at dinner. Let's discuss this rationally. Claire nodded vigorously, her hair slightly mussed, as if they'd rushed over. Yeah, Lil, no need for drama. We're family. Blood, we can work this out. Ethan hung back, but chimed in, his voice tentative, hands gesturing placatingly. Come on, sis, sign partial over and we'll forget the disownment stuff. Forget? The word ignited a slow burn in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral, leaning against the doorframe, the cool wood grounding me. They piled in when I reluctantly stepped aside, the group spilling into my small living room like an unwelcome tide. Mom perched on the couch edge, smoothing her skirt with fidgety hands, avoiding the scattered pillows as if they offended her. Dad paced a few steps, stopping by the window, curtains rustling as he parted them briefly to glance outside. Claire sat rigidly, crossing her legs, nails digging into her palms subtly, a tell I'd known since childhood. Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed but looser, his eyes darting between us. The air thickened with their scramble, words tumbling out in a rush. Mom started again, leaning forward, her necklace swinging. We didn't mean it, the cutting off, it's just the shock. But now with everyone talking, supporting you, maybe we can share management, for the bakery's sake. Dad nodded, turning from the window, his face flushed. Exactly, we've got experience. Your little expansion ideas, we could help scale them bigger. How did they know about the expansion? Hargrove must have mentioned it in passing, or rumors from employees. Claire jumped in, her voice higher, forced casual. And think of us, your siblings. We've always been there. This could unite us. Always been there? The hypocrisy hit like a wave, and I felt my jaw tighten, teeth clenching for a split second before I relaxed. I remained standing, arms still folded, letting the silence stretch, watching their discomfort grow. Mom shifted, her foot tapping softly on the carpet. Dad's pacing resumed, slower now. Claire uncrossed and recrossed her legs. Ethan pushed off the wall, rubbing his hands together. Finally I spoke, voice even, each word deliberate. Unite us? You disowned me 2 hours ago, called my life cute and wasteful. Now because the community, people who actually knew Nana and Papa's hearts, are backing me, you want in? Mom's eyes widened, hand fluttering to her throat. It's not like that, we're family. I shook my head slowly, stepping closer, my gaze sweeping them one by one. Family? Where were you when I needed support? Ignored my graduations, mocked my teaching. But Claire's promotions, trips and toasts. Ethan's deals? Slaps on the back. Me? Invisible unless useful. Dad stopped pacing, facing me, his fists balling briefly at his sides before opening. That's not fair. We provided. I cut him off, calm but firm, my hand gesturing toward the door. Provided conditionally. The second I wouldn't hand over money that isn't yours, you cut me off. Now scrambling because you realize you can't contest it easily? Hypocrites. Claire stood abruptly, chair scraping, her face paling. You don't get to judge us. We've worked hard. I met her eyes, unflinching. Hard for status, not people. Nana and Papa saw that, why they chose me. Affidavits from their friends prove it. They knew you'd demand, entitled as always. Ethan reached out, palm up. Lil, please, let's not burn bridges. But his voice wavered, eyes dropping to the floor. The exposure hung there, raw and undeniable. Mom's lips trembled, but no tears came, just a averted gaze, fingers twisting her ring. Dad deflated, shoulders sagging fully now. I felt a surge of empowerment. Straight-backed, voice unwavering. You've shown your true colors, love tied to dollars. I'm done. Pointing to the door, I added, leave, and don't come back unless it's to apologize genuinely. They exchanged glances, stunned into silence, the scramble deflating like a punctured balloon. Mom rose slowly, clutching her purse tighter. Dad nodded once, defeated. Claire huffed but followed. Ethan lingered a second, whispering, sorry, before trailing out. I shut the door behind them with a firm click, locking it, my back pressing against the wood as I exhaled deeply. The powerful exit was theirs. For once, I stood firm in my space, hypocrisy laid bare, walking away from their toxicity for good. The echo of the door's click lingered in my ears as I leaned against it, my back sliding down the wood until I sat on the floor, knees drawn up, arms wrapping around them tightly. The adrenaline from the confrontation drained away, leaving me hollow, the apartment's quiet amplifying the thump of my heart. Their faces, Mom's fluttering hands, Dad's deflated shoulders, Claire's huffed exit, Ethan's whispered sorry, flashed like unwelcome snapshots, but I pushed them aside, focusing on the phone still clutched in my hand, its screen dimmed but full of unread messages from the community. Mr. Jenkins' words replayed. You're not alone. I unlocked it with a swipe. Thumb scrolling through the outpouring, simple offers from bakery staff, old friends of Nana's, even the mailman who'd delivered to the shop for years. One stood out. Gathering tomorrow at the bakery, potluck to celebrate you and them. Come early, Harold. A gathering? The idea warmed me, a counterpoint to the chill of rejection. I typed back quickly, fingers tapping with tentative hope. I'll be there. Setting the phone aside, I rose slowly, joints protesting, and headed to bed, the sheets cool as I slipped in, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion claimed me. Morning light filtered through the blinds, striping the floor, as I woke to the buzz of my alarm. I stretched, muscles sore from tension, and padded to the kitchen, brewing coffee with mechanical motions, measuring grounds, pouring water, the drip steady like a heartbeat. The mug warmed my palms as I sipped, gazing out the window at neighbors starting their day, normalcy that felt foreign after last night's storm. But the invitation pulled me forward. I dressed simply, jeans, a soft sweater Nana had knit, its yarn slightly pilled from wear, and grabbed my keys, the jingle, a small ritual of resolve. The drive to the bakery was familiar, winding through tree-lined streets, leaves turning gold in the fall sun, but today it felt charged, each mile distancing me from the toxic dinner's residue. Parking in the lot, I spotted cars already clustered, Mr. Jenkins' old pickup, Mrs. Ellis's minivan, others I recognized from community events. The bakery's sign swung gently, Carter's Confections, etched in faded gold, a beacon. Pushing open the door, the bell tinkling above, I was enveloped in warmth, literal and figurative. The aroma hit first, fresh-baked scones, coffee brewing, hints of cinnamon and vanilla mingling like old friends. Tables had been pushed together in the center, covered in checkered cloths, laden with dishes, casseroles steaming, fruit platters colorful, pies with lattice crusts golden. People milled about, 24 at least, chatting in clusters, laughter bubbling. Mr. Jenkins spotted me first, wiping his hands on his apron, striding over with open arms. Lily, there she is. His hug was firm, back-patting, the scent of yeast clinging to him like a signature. I hugged back, my cheek against his shoulder, tension easing. Thank you for this, I murmured, pulling away, eyes scanning the room. Mrs. Ellis waved from the counter, her glasses slipping down her nose as she arranged mugs, her smile wide and genuine. Others approached in waves, with each interaction a balm. Sarah, the young baker who'd started as an apprentice under Papa, handed me a plate with a scone, her fingers brushing mine warmly. We made your favorites. Blueberry, just like Nana taught. I took a bite, crumbs flaking onto my sweater, the tart berries bursting, evoking memories of kitchen lessons with Nana's patient guidance. It's perfect, I said, voice thick, and she squeezed my arm, her touch lingering in solidarity. Tom from deliveries clapped my shoulder, his calloused hand rough but kind, recounting a story of Papa's pranks during Roots, his laugh booming, drawing nods from nearby listeners. No condescension here. No backhanded jabs about my teaching or little life. Instead, questions flowed real. How are the kids at school this year? From Mrs. Ellis, her head tilting attentively as I described a recent art project, her eyes lighting up without judgment. We settled around the tables, chairs scraping as people sat, plates clinking. Mr. Jenkins stood, tapping a spoon against his mug for attention, the room quieting gradually. "We're here for Lillian," he said, voice carrying his mustache twitching in a smile. "And for the Carters, who built this place on heart, not handouts." Murmurs of agreement rippled, heads nodding, and he gestured to me, hand open. They chose wisely. I felt heat in my cheeks but sat taller, my hands unfolding in my lap, fingers relaxing. Stories poured out then, unprompted, organic. An older gentleman, Papa's poker buddy, leaned forward, elbows on the table, recounting how Papa loaned him money during hard times, no strings. Never asked for repayment. Just said, "Pay it forward." His eyes misted and he patted the table emphatically. A supplier's wife shared Nana's charity drives, how she'd organize bake sales for local shelters, her voice soft, hands gesturing animatedly. Each tale contrasted sharply with my family's dinner. No boasting, no demands, just shared respect, values aligning like perfectly risen dough. I contributed quietly at first, voice gaining strength, describing Papa's ledger lessons, how he'd sit with me hours, pencil in hand, explaining margins with patience. He saw potential where others didn't, I said, meeting eyes around the table, seeing nods, no dismissals. Sarah chimed in, "That's why we're staying on. For you." The affirmation hit deep. I blinked back moisture, dabbing with a napkin, the paper soft against my skin. Laughter broke tension. Tom joking about Papa's terrible puns, mimicking his delivery, hands waving, drawing chuckles that warmed the room further. As plates emptied, conversations splintered into smaller groups. I moved between them, hugging, listening, each touch, a hand on my back, a clasped forearm, reinforcing belonging. Mrs. Ellis pulled me aside near the display case, her arm linking mine, leading to a quiet corner. "The affidavits are filed," she whispered, her breath minty from gum. "And the expansion? We've got ideas. Local hires first." I nodded, squeezing her arm, gratitude swelling. No greed here, just collaboration, true family by choice. The gathering stretched into afternoon, sunlight shifting through windows, casting golden pools on the floor. Farewells came with promises, calls, visits, support unwavering. Mr. Jenkins walked me out last, hand on my shoulder, solid. "This is your circle now." I hugged him again, tighter, stepping into the crisp air, keys in hand, feeling anchored, the toxic disownment a distant shadow against this genuine light. Leaving the bakery, the sun dipping lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the parking lot, I slid into my car, the leather seat warm from the day's heat. The engine purred to life with a turn of the key, and I pulled out slowly, gravel popping under the tires, my mind still humming from the gathering's embrace. Mr. Jenkins' final words, "This is your circle now," echoed, a mantra that fortified me against the lingering sting of my family's late-night visit. But as I merged onto the main road, traffic light and steady, my phone buzzed insistently in the cup holder, screen flashing with texts from Claire. "We need to talk again." Ethan's followed. "Don't shut us out." Even Mom, "Come home, let's fix this." I glanced at them briefly at a stoplight, thumb hovering, but deleted each one without replying, my finger pressing firmly, a small act of defiance. The aftermath was crashing in, the legal threats Dad had hinted at, the personal pleas sure to follow, and I knew establishing boundaries wasn't just words, it was action, brick by brick, to protect this new life. Arriving home, I parked with a slight jolt, grabbing my purse and heading inside, the door locking behind me with a definitive click. The apartment smelled faintly of last night's tea, a reminder of solitude turned strength. I dropped my keys on the counter, the metal clinking, and sank into the kitchen chair, pulling out my laptop with deliberate motions, lid flipping open. First things first, legal fortifications? Mr. Hargrove had emailed earlier, attachment heavy with documents, the will's reinforcements, affidavits from the community stacked like armor. I scrolled through them, mouse clicking steadily, eyes scanning the legalese. Sound mind, undue influence negated, signatures from Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Ellis, others, each one a testament. But my family wouldn't back down easily. Dad's consulting lawyer's threat loomed. I picked up my phone, dialing Hargrove, the ringtone sharp in the quiet room. He answered on the second ring, voice crisp. "Lillian, expected your call." We talked for nearly an hour, me pacing the kitchen floor, footsteps soft on the tile, cordless phone pressed to my ear. "They'll likely file a contest," he said, papers shuffling on his end. "Emotional undue influence, perhaps incapacity claims." I stopped by the window, fingers parting the blinds, peering at the street where a neighbor walked their dog, oblivious. "How do we counter?" My voice was steady, but my free hand clenched the curtain fabric, twisting it slightly. He outlined steps: counterfilings ready, community statements as evidence, even a no-contact order if harassment escalated. "We'll petition for expedited review," he added, keyboard tapping. I nodded along, though unseen, jotting notes on a nearby pad, pen scratching urgently. "And personally, block their numbers?" He paused, thoughtful. "If needed, yes. Boundaries are key." "Hanging up?" Yep, I felt the weight. Legal battles weren't abstract, they were motions, hearings, stress. But I acted immediately, opening my phone settings, fingers navigating to contacts. Block, Mom, Dad, Claire, Ethan. Each tap was a micro-closure, screen confirming with a subtle vibration. The pleas started subtly that evening, shifting from texts to other channels. An email from Claire popped in my inbox as I prepared dinner, chopping vegetables with rhythmic knife strokes on the cutting board. "Lil, this is silly. Let's meet neutral ground." I read it standing, carrot peels curling under the blade, but deleted without response, the trash icon satisfying. Ethan's came via social media, a direct message. "Family therapy? I'll pay." I hovered over it, fork pausing mid-bite during my solitary meal, the pasta cooling on my plate. Therapy? After years of dismissal? I blocked him there too, setting the phone face down, its silence a victory. Dad tried a different tack, a voicemail left from a work number, his voice booming through the speaker as I listened later, brushing my teeth, foam at my lips. "Think logically, Lillian. We're contesting, save us the court fees, sign partial." I rinsed, spitting forcefully, the water swirling down the drain, and deleted it, mirroring the flush of anger. Days blurred into a routine of navigation, each plea a test I met with resolve. A knock came midweek, unexpected, as I graded papers at the table, red pen capping and uncapping between comments. Peering through the peephole, Mom stood alone, holding a bakery box, ironic given the source. Her face was drawn, lipstick faded. I opened the door a crack, chain latched, hand gripping the frame. "What?" She extended the box, fingers trembling slightly. "Peace offering, your favorites." I didn't take it, my stance firm, feet planted. "No, Mom, you made your choice." Her eyes welled, but I saw the calculation, tears as tool. "We're family, blood." The word twisted the knife, but I shook my head slowly. "Blood that disowned me over money. Leave or I'll call Hargrove." She hesitated, box lowering, then turned, heels clicking down the hall. Closing the door, I leaned forehead against it, breathing deeply, the wood cool. Legal updates came via email chains, Hargrove CCing me on filings. Their contest arrived, predictable claims of manipulation, and I reviewed it in bed, laptop balanced on knees, blankets bunched. My fist clenched the sheet as I read, but Hargrove's response was swift, counters with affidavits, motions to dismiss. "Frivolous," he called it in a follow-up call, me sitting cross-legged on the couch, notebook in lap. Court date set, 2 weeks. Nerves fluttered, but I prepared. Gathering more statements, emailing community members, fingers flying across keys. Responses flooded back, supportive, detailed, bolstering the fortress. Personal boundaries extended outward. At school, a colleague mentioned hearing family drama through town grapevine. I smiled politely, changing the subject, hand-waving dismissively. No oversharing, new rule. Social media, I privatized accounts, unfriending relatives, clicks decisive. Even the bakery became a boundary zone. I instructed staff, no family entry without my okay. Mr. Jenkins enforced it when Ethan showed up unannounced, me overhearing via phone. "Sorry son, Lillian's orders." Ethan's protest faded as the door shut. Through it all, internal shifts solidified. Late nights, staring at the ceiling fans spin, I'd replay pleas, fists balling under pillows but affirm, their loss. The unbreakable protections, legal, emotional, formed a shield, allowing space for growth. By week's end, pleas dwindled, silence golden. I stood taller, boundaries not walls but gates I controlled, navigating the aftermath with a quiet power that honored my grandparents' trust. With the silence from my family settling like dust after a storm, I found myself channeling that quiet power into something tangible. a way to transform the inheritance from a point of contention into a force for good. The court date had come and gone 2 weeks later, a tense morning in a sterile courtroom where Hargrove presented the stack of affidavits, his voice steady as he countered their claims one by one. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes behind wireframes, had ruled swiftly in my favor, her gavel cracking like finality, dismissing their contest as baseless. I'd sat there, hands clasped tightly under the table, nails pressing into my palms, feeling the victory wash over me not as triumph over them, but as validation of Nana and Papa's choice. Walking out into the sunlight, briefcase in hand, Hargrove had clapped my shoulder lightly. "It's yours now, Lillian, use it well." Those words echoed as I drove straight to the bakery, the familiar route now symbolizing not just legacy but rebirth. Today, I wasn't there to manage operations. I was there to launch the foundation, turning their wealth into waves of impact that would redefine the Carter name on my terms. Pulling up, the lot was fuller than usual. Staff cars mingled with a few from the community, invited for this milestone. I parked, engine ticking as it cooled, and grabbed the folder from the passenger seat, its edges crisp with printed proposals I'd spent nights refining. The bell tinkled as I entered, the scent of fresh bread wrapping around me like a welcome, and Mr. Jenkins looked up from the counter, wiping flour from his hands on a towel. "Ready for this?" he asked, his smile broad, mustache lifting. I nodded, hugging the folder to my chest, feeling its weight as more than paper. It was purpose. We moved to the back office, a cozy space cluttered with ledgers and photos of Papa in his prime, rolling dough with that focused grin. Mrs. Ellis was already there, setting up a laptop on the desk, her fingers adjusting the screen angle precisely. Sarah and Tom hovered nearby along with a couple of local educators I'd reached out to, their presence a nod to blending the bakery's community with my teaching world. We gathered around the desk, chairs scraping as we sat, the room humming with quiet anticipation. I opened the folder slowly, pages fanning out, and began outlining the plan, my voice gaining strength with each word. "The Carter Legacy Foundation," I said, sliding copies across the wood, fingers tracing the bold header. "Honoring Nana and Papa by supporting education and small businesses, the hearts of communities like ours." Mr. Jenkins leaned forward, elbows on the table, scanning the document, his nod deliberate. "Smart. Starts with grants for teachers, right? Supplies, training, things you know firsthand." I confirmed, recalling my own classroom struggles. Outdated books, limited art materials, kids' eager faces dimmed by lack. The foundation would fund those gaps, starting local but aiming wider, using part of the $26 million as seed capital. Mrs. Ellis chimed in, her pen tapping the page lightly. "And for businesses? Loans at low interest, mentorship programs, like Papa did informally." Exactly. Papa had quietly helped startups, sharing recipes or advice over coffee, his handshake sealing deals built on trust. The conversation deepened as ideas flowed, each contribution a thread weaving the vision tighter. Sarah suggested tying in bakery internships for at-risk youth, her hands gesturing animatedly, crumbs from a morning shift still dusting her apron. "Teach them skills, give purpose, like you do with your kindergartners." I smiled, jotting it down, the pen scratching satisfyingly. Tom added logistics. "Partner with suppliers for discounted materials, expand to food banks." His voice was gruff but earnest, leaning back in his chair, arms crossing over his delivery uniform. The educators, Miss Ramirez from the elementary school and Mr. Patel from the community college, brought expertise, proposals for scholarships, workshops on financial literacy. Miss Ramirez pushed her glasses up, finger pointing to a bullet point. "Incorporate arts programs, creativity builds resilience." I agreed, thinking of my students' drawings, how expression healed. We debated allocations, 60% education, 40% to business support, numbers shifting as we crunched them on the laptop, keys clacking under Mrs. Ellis's efficient typing. As the discussion peaked, I felt an internal realization crystallize, profound and centering. This wasn't just charity, it was reclaiming the family name from materialism's grip. My parents had twisted Carter into status symbols, fancy cars, exclusive clubs, while Nana and Papa embodied generosity, their bakery a hub for neighbors in need. By establishing this, I was stripping away the entitlement, polishing the legacy to reflect shared values. My hands paused on the table, fingers splaying flat against the wood, grounding me in the moment. "This is it," I said softly, voice catching slightly. "Not revenge, but writing the narrative. Carter means giving back now." The room stilled for a beat, then nods rippled, Mr. Jenkins reaching over to pat my hand, his touch rough but warm. "They'd be proud, Lily." We moved to action, filing the paperwork digitally, my mouse clicking through forms, Hargrove's prepped templates making it seamless. Signatures followed, mine first, pen looping confidently, then witnesses from the group, each addition a commitment. Sarah snapped photos on her phone, flash popping, capturing the smiles, the signed stack. "For the wall," she said, winking, and I laughed, the sound light, unburdened. As the meeting wrapped, hugs exchanged, Ms. Ramirez's quick embrace, Mr. Patel's firm handshake, the realization deepened. This foundation was my terms, positive impact rippling outward. First grants would go out next month, supplies for my school, startup funds for a local cafe owner Papa had mentored. The Carter name, once tainted by greed in my eyes, now stood for empowerment. Stepping outside later, sun warming my face, keys in hand, I lingered by the sign, fingers brushing the etched letters. No more shadows from disownment. This was light, created by choice. Driving home, windows down, wind tousling my hair, I replayed the session. The ideas, the support, feeling the legacy truly mine, reclaimed through creation, not conflict. The Foundation's launch had set everything in motion, but it was in the quiet aftermath, weeks later, that the deepest shift of a solitary reflection that crystallized my journey from outcast to self-assured. I'd taken a rare day off from teaching, the kindergarten classroom buzzing without me, and driven to the old family cabin by the lake, a property included in the inheritance that my grandparents had cherished for its simplicity. The key turned in the lock with a familiar rasp, the door creaking open to reveal dust motes dancing in the sunlight streaming through the windows. I stepped inside, my boots echoing on the wooden floors, and set down a small bag with a thermos of coffee and Nana's old journal, its leather cover worn from years of her handwriting. The air smelled of pine and faint vanilla from past baking sessions here, pulling me back to summers spent with them, away from my parents' bustling world. I wandered the room slowly, fingers trailing over the quilt on the couch, the bookshelves lined with Papa's favorites, biographies of entrepreneurs who'd started small. This place was untouched by family drama. It was pure, a sanctuary where I could finally sit with myself, no distractions, and unpack the internal storm that had brewed since the will reading. Settling on the porch swing, the chains creaking softly as I rocked, I unscrewed the thermos, steam rising in curls that matched the lake's gentle ripples below. The water lapped at the dock, a rhythmic soothe, and I sipped the coffee, its bitterness grounding me. Thoughts flooded in unbidden. The disownment's sting, the community's warmth, the Foundation's promise. But I let them flow without resistance, my hands cupping the warm mug, fingers tapping absently on its side. Why had it all hurt so much? Not just the greed, but the revelation that blood ties meant so little without shared values. I'd chased their approval for years, dimming my light to fit their mold, clenching my fists in silent frustration at every dismissed achievement. But here, alone with the wind rustling the leaves, I realized it wasn't about them anymore. My worth wasn't in their validation, it was internal, forged in the quiet acts of kindness I'd chosen, teaching eager 5-year-olds, nurturing the bakery's legacy, building a foundation that echoed Nana and Papa's hearts. The realization deepened as I opened Nana's journal, pages flipping under my thumb, her elegant script jumping out in snippets. "True family chooses you back, Lily. Blood is just the start." I'd read it before, but now it hit differently, my eyes tracing the ink, a single tear dropping onto the paper, blurring a word briefly. I wiped it away gently, the page cool under my fingertip, and closed my eyes, breathing in the crisp air. Flashbacks played like a montage. The lawyer's office silence after my refusal, fists unclenching as I walked out, the dinner's escalating barbs, my napkin twisting in my lap, the call from Mr. Jenkins, phone vibrating hope into my despair, exposing their hypocrisy in my apartment, door shutting with finality. Each moment had chipped away the illusion, revealing that their conditional love had never defined me. I was enough, had always been, in my compassion, my resilience. The peace settled then, profound and enveloping, like the lake's calm surface hiding depths below. No more internal battles. I released the resentment, exhaling slowly, shoulders dropping as if shedding a heavy coat. But it wasn't instant. Doubts crept in, whispers of, what if they're right? What if I'm alone? I stood, pacing the porch boards, feet scuffing softly, hands gesturing to the empty air as if arguing with ghosts. No, I murmured, stopping at the railing, gripping the wood until splinters pricked my palms. Their entitlement had exposed the truth. Family is respect, shared ethics, not DNA. The community, Mr. Jenkins' hugs, Sarah's scones, the foundation's grants proved that. They chose me daily without strings. My life, once invisible, now shone in its authenticity, shaping young minds, expanding a business with heart, giving back without fanfare. I sat again, journal in lap, flipping to a blank page at the end, and picked up a pen from my bag, its cap clicking off. I wrote slowly, words forming deliberately. I am worthy because I choose to be kind, to honor legacies, to build rather than take. The act sealed it, ink drying as I reread, a small smile tugging my lips. Hours passed, the sun arcing overhead, shadows lengthening across the water. I walked to the dock, shoes off, toes dipping into the cool lake, ripples spreading from each touch. The sensation mirrored my growth. Small actions creating waves. Internal peace wasn't absence of pain, it was acceptance, knowing my value stemmed from within, not external nods. Nana and Papa had seen that, entrusting me because they knew I'd find this truth. As dusk approached, fireflies flickering early, I gathered my things, locking the cabin with a soft turn, key pocketed securely. Driving back, headlights cutting the twilight, I felt lighter, the realization a quiet anchor. True family was values aligned, respect earned. I'd found mine, in the community, in my work, in myself. The journey ended not in revenge but in this self-validation, a peace that whispered, "You're home." Have you ever felt like your family's love came with strings attached, only to discover that real bonds are built on something deeper? That's what hit me hardest through all this. The realization that blood doesn't guarantee belonging, but shared values and respect do. Looking back, standing my ground against their demands wasn't just about the money, it was about claiming my own worth, free from their conditions. It hurt, sure, watching them reveal their true colors, but it freed me to build a life aligned with Nana and Papa's legacy. One of giving, not grasping. If you've got a story like mine, maybe a family fallout over inheritance or just feeling overlooked by those who should have your back, share it in the comments below. Did you find your own chosen family in friends, colleagues, or a community that truly sees you? Or how did you reclaim your self-worth after a betrayal? Your experiences could inspire someone else going through it right now. So what do you think? Did I hold firm enough in defending the inheritance? Or should I have compromised more? Drop a comment below letting me know, like if this resonated, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and real-life twists. Remember, your value isn't in what others give or take, it's in how you rise and redefine family on your terms. Stay strong out there.